All right, first of all, CFO Ingoglia, thank you so much for being with us today. A couple of questions. It's been a full month for you since you were sworn in. That is really one of the most important jobs in our state. As an elected official, you oversee so much. How's it going up to this point, 4 weeks in?
It's going great. I think we've hit the ground running. We laid out sort of like a platform, 3 top things that we wanted to do, which is property tax reform, cutting out wasteful spending, and making sure that we're holding insurance companies accountable. We're doing that. We're working hard. I'm energized by how busy I am and how much we can make an impact out of that office.
For the voters who are not familiar with the Chief Financial Officer's position, you oversee insurance regulation, protections on consumers. It's a wide gamut, along with finances and several other things. Kind of describe that for our viewer.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do at the CFO's office is making sure, in conjunction with OIR, Office of Insurance Regulation, holding insurance companies accountable. One of the big things that we've seen over the past couple of years was lawsuit reform. And that, if you remember a couple of years ago, we had the insurance market basically on the verge of collapse. So now insurance companies are writing policies again. We're seeing insurance policies rates go down. And my job is to make sure, in conjunction with OIR, that we have a vibrant market where people can compete for your policy, pushing prices down, but also hold those insurance companies accountable and make sure that they do what they say they're supposed to be doing.
I want to talk to you about DOGE and everything, but
Sure.
Since we're on the topic of insurance, a lot more still need to be done?
Oh yeah, there's always a lot more that need to be done. I'm not going to rest until we are having the insurance industry do what they say they're going to do. We have that vibrant market economy, and there are probably things that we can do legislatively also to make sure that we're holding insurers accountable, so we don't regress back to the years where we had double-digit increases.
Somebody once said to me, the reinsurance market is so unpredictable that's part of the problem. Is so many of these insurers, especially these smaller ones, rely on that reinsurance to kind of underwrite the risk. Is legislation need to be done to address that part of it?
I don't know if legislation needs to be done to address that, but I do know that the more reinsurance companies that are out there, the more they're going to push back reinsurance rates down, the more regular policyholders will see a lower rate. So the more we can do to incentivize that at the state to make sure that we have more of those companies, the better off policyholders will be.
Is Tallahassee still talking about possibly making a system in place where the hurricane insurance would be like wildfire insurance in California?
No, California basically has no insurance market right now, and one of the reasons why is they were trying to, for the lack of a better word, nationalize the insurance in California, which drove a lot of the people, the insurers, out of the state of Florida. I think that's the wrong thing to do. So we want to make sure the private market comes in, competes on price, competes on contracts, what they're available to give to the policyholder, and I think that is a much better way to go about doing it.
Talk to me about DOGE. This is something that the state of Florida has actually been very aware of. This Department of Government Efficiency has now been kind of, they're emulating what we see in the national level, but we've kind of been the first to DOGE, as the governor says.
Yeah, this is a state initiative. Look, when DOGE happened at the federal government, they were doging their own agencies and own government. So there was a lot of inefficiencies and money that they can cut from the federal government, the wasteful spending. What we're doing is a little bit different. What we are going in, I have broad constitutional audit authority at the CFO's office where I can go in and audit any entity, government or not, that receives taxpayer money. So these local governments now, we're going through and we're highlighting some of this wasteful spending in an effort to basically show taxpayers what their local government is spending on. Now, we cannot mandate that they cut, which is different than what the federal government was doing. What we can do is arm people with the information so then they can take to the polls in November when or not they want to re-elect people or elect people to take those positions. But probably more importantly, there's going to be a constitutional amendment on the ballot in November 26th, and people are going to get a chance to vote for property tax relief. So we're going to arm them with the information so they know that they're wasting money. And why is this important? Because the local governments are crying, they're complaining, parade of horribles that the sky is falling when they have to cut. And we're going to show them, no, there's more than enough room for you guys to cut and make local governments leaner, more accountable, and less on taxes.
What leverage would the state have over a local municipality to entice them to make the right choice?
Yeah, really good question. There are some things that we can do. There are some legislative proposals that I am going to propose. Not at privy to say now, but rest assured that it's going to be taxpayer-centric, defending the taxpayer. But another thing that we can do, and I've been on record saying this, is that local governments constantly ask Tallahassee for money. Well, if we're going to prove, if my office is going to prove that you as a local government, whether you're a city or a county, cannot be a good steward of the taxpayer money now, don't ask us for money, because you've already proven that you can't do it with your own money. Don't do it with our money. So we may cut off funding at the state.
And that could be enough incentive to get them to change?
Look, I think the incentive should be that they want to take care of their citizens. People understand that people are hurting right now. Housing affordability is probably the #1 issue in the state of Florida when you combine property taxes, the cost of housing, and insurance. So delivering property tax relief is a big part of delivering housing affordability in the state. So they should be doing it just because they want to, because they care about their constituents.
What is defined as waste in your eyes, and kind of describe what you've seen from some of these audits?
Yeah, so I'm not going to go into specifics on what we found because the reports haven't been released yet. And the reason why I do that is I do not want one county to see what we found in another county and then they realize we found that in another county so they can hide it in the other county. So we're not going to say that, but there is plenty of waste, fraud, and abuse that we're seeing. Some of it is just, honestly, it's mind-boggling. We can't believe that they're doing it. So it is subjective, to answer your question. What I would perceive as waste, maybe someone else wouldn't perceive as waste. But we need to arm people with the information so they can have that policy debate. But at the end of the day, what I tell the auditors and the reviewers, if you are a taxpayer in this county or in this city that you're reviewing right now, and you come across something that you get a guttural, visceral reaction, it's like, why are you paying? Would you be offended if you were a taxpayer in the city? And that's the metric that they're using.
It sounds like there may be some embarrassing things exposed in these reports that you release.
Yeah, there probably will be, and it's unfortunate, but I think some of the elected officials don't even know what the bureaucracy is doing underneath them. I've told people, I said, hey, did you know that your county spent money on X? And they were like, well, I had no idea. So it was the administrators, it was middle management, not procuring things the way they were supposed to be doing, giving contracts out to their friends, spending money egregiously on something that they probably could have got at like maybe 3/4 of the price, and sometimes they just don't know about it. So if we're going to arm the voters with information, we're also going to arm the elected officials. Then it's going to be up to them what they want to do.
A lot of the reports that are coming out about DOGE, they feel like they're targeting, at being targeted is the social issues, homelessness, DEI programs, things like that. Is that unfair?
That they're saying that we're targeting them?
Targeting those particular social issues, those social programs that are on the chopping block at the federal level. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is wasteful spending. Let me just be clear. I do not believe in DEI initiatives. I don't believe in Green New Deal initiatives. I think it is a way for local governments to spend money and funnel some of that money to some of their preferred vendors or contractors on some of that stuff. But having said that, there has to be a cost-benefit analysis. I just don't see where the cost-benefit is on DEI and green energy programs.
How about homelessness?
Homelessness is the same thing. I mean, once you subsidize things, you wind up getting more of it. So Ronald Reagan famously said that, and I truly believe that. So if they're putting in programs to help with homelessness where they're living, they're not addressing the root cause. I think the more we can do for addressing the root cause, which would be mental health, which could be done at the state, but some of those programs aren't meant to help. It's a short-term solution. It creates more homelessness, unfortunately, for some of these counties. And I think there's probably better, more efficient uses of tax dollars in that case, not necessarily get away with the program altogether.
When you talk about some of these counties you're going into, it's not so much of a surprise, but you tell them you've already asked for them to mail in ahead of time their own personal audits. Mm-hmm. Is there ever been an attempt up to this point for those municipalities to maybe hide some things, as you just mentioned? And do you have teeth to be able to go out and to penalize them? if
So
they
the
do
answer-
try to hide them?
The answer is yes. We have seen some local governments try to hide the information from what we were trying to do. Specifically, there's a local government out there knew we were coming in and we wanted to see all the DEI contracts. So what they did was they renamed a lot of the files and removed diversity, equity, and inclusion from the file. So when you did a quick search, it would show up as nothing. But there's a digital footprint, and we are on the verge of issuing subpoenas to try to, so we can depose people and ask them who told you to do that, why did you do it, what was the original name of the files, where's the original contract, so we can get to the bottom of this.
What's the tool you're using to do that? Is it AI?
So we're using a bunch of different things. We're going everything from basic reading the actual contract ourselves and looking for specific things to sorting things out in a spreadsheet to using AI tools. We're using everything that we possibly can to try to make sure that we get to the bottom. But AI is become an invaluable tool, but it's not the only tool. In fact, we think that because of the subjectiveness of what could be considered wasteful spending, we don't think AI will pick up on that. So while we're using AI, it is not the stopgap for all. We're getting regular people looking at this stuff.
Talk about compensation, because that's also been brought up. Some of our public officials are getting paid more than they should.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but they are. So what we've seen this in the mid-2000s in the state of Florida. We're seeing it now. With the rise in property values and a corresponding rise in property taxes, what we've seen is that the local employees have seen not just big raises, but egregious raises. Some of them double digits. Like I know that there are some people that for the same job, 4 years ago was getting paid $50,000, and the same job they're getting paid $90,000. Now, is that a lot of money? Yes. Especially if you compare it to what they make in the local economy. So one of the metrics I like to use on this, and I've spoken to the DOGE auditors and they're digging into this, is what does a regular person make in your county? If a regular average person makes $35,000 in your county and the average local government employee makes $70,000, double, well then you as a taxpayer are funding somebody else's very, very nice lifestyle, and I think people would have problems with that.
Some critics are pointing out that some of the initial audits were done in counties that typically are blue. Is that a factor in when you decide who you're going to audit first?
No, some of those bluer counties were some of the ones where we've seen some of the largest spikes and increase in their general fund budgets. But we are looking way past whether it is blue or red. We're just looking for excessive and wasteful spending. We've been on site in a couple of Hillsborough County now is a red county, but if you look at their commissioners, I want to say, don't quote me, it's either they have 9 commissioners and 7 of them are Republicans, or it's 7 and 5 of them are Republicans, but they're the majority Republican. So Pinellas County is a red county, Pensacola is red, Manatee County is red. So when people say that we are targeting blue counties, they're just not paying attention to what we're doing.
How did we get to this point?
It's a good question. How we got to this point, believe it or not, was COVID money. So back before COVID, you had a base general fund budget, base operating budget for local governments. COVID money came in, whether it was done directly to the counties or filtered down through the states. Local government took this extra pot of money, expanded government programs, added government programs, started giving themselves a lot of raises, which is very confusing because COVID money is supposed to be short-term dollars. It's not meant to be there for, they knew the gravy train was going to end. But local governments got lucky. A lot of people started moving to Florida during COVID, post-COVID. The free state of Florida, as the governor likes to put, and I totally agree with that. So with that, you had a lot of people moving into the county, property taxes spiked, or property value spiked, property taxes spiked, and all of a sudden they had this new income stream coming in that was replacing the COVID money. So they kept these programs and expanded them even past COVID years. So now they're at the point where people are clamoring for a property tax relief, and the only way to do that is constitutional amendment. We're going to be forced to cut, and now they have to face the question, how can I keep government as big as it is right now? And the answer is they can't.
Describe what that looks like. Are we talking about local municipalities that are providing just the basic services, police, fire, things that we know we need, and maybe social programs are going to be lopped off?
Not necessarily. It depends on how, again, how fiscally responsible they have been in the past, how fiscally responsible they are now. One of those metrics is you go back to 2019 or 2020, right before COVID hit, and you find out what their budget was. And if you go forward and you index for population and inflation, you will have what the government budget should be. And then how much further past that will then determine how much they actually have to cut back. So an example, if you had a government that had a $100 million budget, I know small, I'm just using it as an example, and let's say with population and inflation, they should be at 121, but now they're at 156. That's $35 million of probably extra stuff that they probably shouldn't have in the first place.
And as the governor pointed out, a lot of taxes were going up in these same municipalities.
Yes, tax revenues, local governments had a windfall of tax revenues come in. I don't think local governments realized that at some point people are going to rise up and demand property tax relief the same way they did in the 2000s. And this is important. I want everyone to understand this. When we put the original 25,000 homestead exemption on the ballot, and that was ingrained in law, that shielded, when you compare 25,000 to the average price of the home in the state of Florida, it shielded on average about a third of your home from taxation. It protected a third of your home. Now, with the current structure that we have, homestead exemption only shields about 9% of your home. So the current exemption is severely outdated, and that's why people are hurting.
Yeah, and I think most people don't realize that the state doesn't actually tax property. It's the local municipalities.
Locals. That's right.
Will they ever see a repeal? Can that ever be made possible through the state?
A repeal of property taxes?
Yeah.
Yeah, the governor's goal and my goal is to see everything that we could possibly do to get rid of property taxes on homesteaded properties. Right now, depending on the municipality, depending upon the county, anywhere between 52 to 53% of property taxes locally are paid for properties other than homesteaded property. So there's a pathway for us to do this. Now, we're going to have number crunchers and actuaries, people much smarter than me at Tallahassee, figure out a way to do this, and then there will be a proposal on the ballot. At the very least, even if it is not getting rid of property taxes altogether on homesteaded properties, there is going to be very substantial property tax relief. So local governments should be prepared. Property tax cuts are coming. Your budgets are going to get smaller. Prepare now.
I know you don't have the crystal ball in front of you, but you've been at the job for all of 4 weeks. Where do you see this all headed in 6 months? Do you think that all these local governments will fall in line with Tallahassee and the initiatives?
I think it's not falling in line with Tallahassee. It's going to fall in line with the demands and wants of the people who in their community who are the taxpayers. These are the people who are demanding property tax relief. The governor and I and other elected officials are just listening. But I also want local governments to know this also. My authority to audit is ingrained in the Constitution. I'm not going away. As long as I am in this position, I'm going to be a friend to the taxpayer. I'm going to guard the taxpayer dollars as if it was mine. So as long as I'm in this position, the audits will continue.
And taxpayers can expect to see lower taxes in the future?
If they vote for it, yep, they will.
All right.
The taxpayers have their own fiscal future in their own hands, and they're going to be able to see that November 26th.
Summarize, I feel like you've covered a lot here, but just kind of summarize Palm Beach County today, seeing these auditors for the first time. What can people in this community expect to see from that audit in the next couple of weeks?
So nothing in the next couple of weeks. We're in the data acquisition part. We are probably going to bring back terabytes of information to Tallahassee. We're going to pour over the data. We're going to ask questions. We're going to call back down to local leaders and ask them questions about things that we found. And roughly in about 60 days after we finish that, we're going to print a report and let the taxpayers know what local governments are spending on.
All right, we'll want to hear more.
You got it.
CFO Ingoglia, thanks for stopping in.
My pleasure,
All
sir.
right, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.